This will be your only warning. Stay out of my home. You don't bother me, I won't bother you.
I wish it could be that simple. You've taken an entire town hostage.
Well, I'm not the one with the guns, Director.
I want to help you.
How? What could you possibly have to offer me?
What do you want?
I have what I want. And no one will ever take it from me again.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome again to my channel, Film Flicks and Comics, where we talk all things movies, TV and comics, and of course Marvel and everything related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And today, we're doing our weekly recap of Marvel's WandaVision. Episode 5 is up, so let's get to it. Last week's episode of WandaVision finally lifted the curtain on the strange sitcom world of Westview, explaining some of the stranger occurrences in the Disney Plus series thus far, namely the beekeeper, the toy helicopter, that radio, while also teasing an intriguing future storyline where Wanda is the villain of the story. To start off this exciting episode, we head right back into the sitcom mold, jumping to another decade, this time the 80s, in other words back to the same similar style we were shown for the first 3 episodes. But rather than staying there entirely, we're now treated in a more balanced style feature where we see the show within the show and the actual show itself. It's a nice way to balance the parallel stories of the series, starting with Wanda and Vision's attempt to cope with their newfound parenthood. As they try to deal with their crying kids, we somehow get confirmation about our initial theory that although Wanda is behind the Westview anomaly, she isn't totally in control. This was clearly shown when Wanda, in numerous times in this episode, tries to control her children, especially when they keep jumping ages depending on what the story needs. Also, we get another glimpse of a possible hint towards the introduction of mutants in the MCU when Vision, while helping Wanda get one of the twins to sleep by reading a book, mentions Darwin's The Descent of Man. Simply put, Darwin's book talks about evolutionary theory to human evolution, which relates to how mutant origins are explained in the comics and recent movies being products of centuries-long human evolution. In the same scene, we also get a fourth wall breaking moment when Agnes stumbles her lines because Vision refused to let her care of the twins and then asks Wanda,
Do you want me to take that again? You want me to hold the babies? Should we just take it from the top?
This clearly shows two things. One, that again Wanda does not entirely control everything in this pocket reality, as Vision disagrees with what she suggested, and that too, Agnes is somewhat aware of the made-up reality in that she always appears whenever she's needed, especially when it comes to the twins. And also the fact that she asks Wanda to interfere when the script was not followed in its entirety. And just like in the previous episodes, Vision again senses that something's up. But this time, he's more direct and was able to tell Wanda directly his observations, although Wanda again dismisses his suspicions. The confrontation scene, however, was disrupted when Vision sensed the silence and they were surprised to see a more grown-up Billy and Tommy. Two things to note here is, again, Agnes doesn't seem surprised and in fact says,
Kids. Can't control them.
and that Wanda was not the one who caused the kids to grow up, as mentioned earlier. Back at the S.W.O.R.D base, Monica is out of her 70s costume and was registering some weird readings. This may be the explanation of how Monica gets her powers and eventually becomes Photon. As we know in the comics, Photon has energy absorption, generation, and manipulation abilities. She also has the ability of flight at the speed of light and the ability to convert her body into any form of energy within the electromagnetic spectrum. Anyway, going back to the possible origin of her powers, it might have been triggered when she somehow absorbed Wanda's power when she used it to kick her out, and her passing through the energy barrier that Wanda created, which is basically Infinity Stone energy or radiation. This reminds us of how Carol Danvers got her powers after being exposed to the energy/radiation of the Tesseract, aka Space Stone in Captain Marvel, and of course when Wanda and her brother Pietro got their powers after being exposed to the Mind Stone and Loki's scepter, which we all know now was the Mind Stone. In a briefing with Director Hayward, we hear a bit more backstory on Wanda from her parents to her birthplace Sokovia and how she was supposedly radicalized, to which Agent Wu believes to be an oversimplification of things for what's going on. More importantly, they also gave us an answer on what happened to Vision's body after Endgame. After supposedly getting clearance, Director Hayward reveals to everyone that Wanda broke into a secret S.W.O.R.D headquarters to steal Vision's body against the Sokovia Accords and Vision's living will. Here we discovered that Director Hayward seems to be hiding information to everyone. Now that we know he knew about Vision's body, he might have sent Monica to Westview because he knew that's where Wanda brought Vision's body, and that from the footage, we saw how Vision's body was disassembled, seemingly being studied and maybe being turned into a sentient weapon. Also, isn't he the director? Why and to whom does he need clearance from? Also, his negative attitude towards Wanda has been very apparent, citing how she went against the Avengers and that she caused damage in Lagos and Germany during the events in Civil War. Again, Jimmy refuted this by saying that although she used her powers against the Avengers, that was before she earned the trust and became an Avenger herself. Monica also chimed in when she contradicted Director Hayward that Wanda is a terrorist by saying,
My point is, I don't believe she has a political agenda or any inclination toward destruction.
Monica should.
It was also mentioned that Vision was somehow resurrected, meaning he actually exists in the world and is not just a product of manipulation. This fact was further strengthened in the discussion of Darcy, Monica, and Jimmy when they were debating whether or not the twins are real. Monica said that they are indeed real and that anything that gets in the world of Westview is somewhat transformed to conform with whatever is the current scenario. It was likewise mentioned by Darcy that if everything in Westview is real, then Wanda seems to be wielding an insane amount of power, to which Monica was not surprised, mentioning that she could have defeated Thanos if not for Thanos ordering a blitz, and that no one came close to defeating Thanos, to which Jimmy replied he would argue Captain Marvel, but then Monica seemed to avoid further discussion. Could there be some drama between Monica and Carol? Going back to Wanda's world, the twins somehow get a hold of a dog which they name Sparky. And in the discussion whether they're old enough to take care of a dog, the twins, once again on their own, grows up to 10 years old. Again, Agnes seems to be in the right place at the right time when it comes to the twins, and she again doesn't seem to be bothered by the fact that the kids instantly become older and that Wanda was using her powers. Back in the base, Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy attempts to devise a plan to get Monica back in the bubble. In the discussion, a lot of Easter eggs were mentioned like the word photon, Monica's superhero persona in the comics, an aerospace engineer, which might be a reference to a member of the Fantastic Four, and the word hex, which in the comics is what Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch's power, is called. In the MCU, however, the hexagonal shape is more related to space travel, as can be seen in the space jumps made by our favorite heroes in different movies in the MCU. Meanwhile, their discovery that Wanda is changing clothes and technology rather than do so as an illusion leads them to do something rather clever, sending in an era-appropriate 1980s drone to try and get a visual and make contact. However, true to our seeming mistrust of Director Hayward, we see him ordering an underling to take the shot, in classic bad guy military style. This doesn't go too well for him, as we get our first real look at the real Wanda for the first time this series. Emerging from Westview with the broken drone, Wanda, wearing the same costume in Avengers Endgame, gives S.W.O.R.D a stark warning to leave her alone. Meanwhile, Wanda's attempts to distract Vision with a day off at the office, despite the fact that it was a Saturday earlier, which again was noticed by the twins, don't go too well either. With the introduction of 1980s email technology to computational services, they pick up a rogue email from the outside world that raises Vision's suspicions even further. Suddenly, Vision's able to wake his colleague Norm, similar to how Vision erased Ultron from the internet, revealing exactly what it's like to be under Wanda's control. Or was it Wanda's control? You have to stop her. She's in my head. Norm tells him shortly before being zapped back to normality. Was she referring though to Wanda? As we saw in the confrontation scene, Wanda used her mind-controlling powers to redirect the aim of the soldiers from her to Director Hayward, and it was apparent because the red aura is seen on the heads of those controlled. No such red aura can be seen in the heads of those inside Westview, so it can be argued that it might not be Wanda. So could it be Agnes? Or Dottie, who's been missing since episode 3? Add that to our list of mysteries to be solved. Anyway, after a short commercial break of Lagos paper towels, the same Lagos where Wanda caused destruction hinting at the events of Captain America Civil War, we're back to the main sitcom storyline, with the bleak moment that sees Sparky the dog end his short-lived stint as part of the family. And interestingly, the very special message Wanda imparts to the kids, that sometimes death is part of life, fits both her storyline and the sitcom confines of Westview. And when Vision does come home, WandaVision finally delivers the clash between its title characters that we've been waiting for. Vision finally knows something is up, and that Wanda is controlling his world, but he doesn't know where he was before or why she's doing it. You can't control me like you control them, he tells her, and pushes through Wanda's attempts to roll the credits in their episode to continue the argument. It's a high emotion, fairly powerful scene, only slightly undercut by a shocking arrival at the end of the episode. Yes, as had been rumored, Quicksilver is back as the classic long lost brother, but probably not the Quicksilver we were expecting. Rather than Age of Ultron's Aaron Taylor Johnson, she's greeted by Evan Peters, who plays a super fast character in Fox's stable of X Men films. It's a briefly self aware plot and reality twisting cameo that's likely to overshadow this entire episode. Whether it's the WandaVision cameo everyone's been talking about is less clear, though Peter's arrival could have serious ramifications for the inclusion of Disney's recently purchased X Men characters. And with WandaVision, he could be the first hint that someone other than Wanda is pulling the strings. Really, it's the perfect ending to a week. WandaVision has so far been a really solid show and another great entry into the MCU. Despite all the weirdness and unanswered questions, we have kept watching it because of its unique structure, humor, and of course all the tie-ins and references to past movies and events. Episode 5 literally blows every episode before this out of the water. From the details and revelations to the nods and references, one can't help but get happily frustrated with the fact that we have to wait another week for the next one. And needless to say, I can't wait to see where it goes next. Thank you guys for watching my video, and we're all looking forward to episode 6. If you like this video, please smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you again, until the next video.